The Proposal, A New Arrival, Dao Buddha, by Medusa D.B. Loveheart, Part 4. For this organism's well-being and continued existence. Since we lack this unified foundational standing, our evolution becomes more of an insult of life than a glory of exceptional beings. We are merely caretakers and a possibility of a beautiful brain function to gear this nature-life organism in any direction we like. The rich flora of diversity of life forms upon this planet is the greatest blessing, if anything, that resides in the exceptionality of exists and nature's coexistence. Humanity chose to rape it, destroy it, and torture it without any regrets whatsoever. The poorer the flora of life gets, the closer to the brink of extinction we get, and that's not just for the human race, but all the species sharing the same opportunity. Humans are very efficient for many reasons when it comes to destruction of their own foundational needs. The poor understanding we have about our source and reason has already limited our future richness in many directions. This life organism is the base and foundation for future colonizations and future home planets. The recklessness and ignorance spread among us today serves no other purpose than prematurely end the chance to make the choice and give ourselves the option to continue our journey. Because of people's pride and refusal to admit their own truths about a natural phenomenon such as the revealing of new directions or paths, resulting in that past life view pictures are put aside for the future to come. People's faith in money and ruthless power has rooted deep in many norms and understandings. Because people are unable to face the truth that we once again are to take the same type of step in evolution as when we had to accept that Earth wasn't flat but indeed an orb we all lived upon, walking upside down in relation to people on the opposite side of it. That's exactly how small and narrow-minded we still are. That's exactly how disoriented humanity is in their perception of truth. The people of today care for material possessions and publicity of fame, living in a reality where the future isn't further away than their own desire to overcome their own bad self-esteem. Amending the behavioral pattern of a parasite nurturing from its surrounding in a desperate need to win a non-existing contest of who knows what stupidity, with no care about the future, no care about source or reason to why they are. These are the ones that walk around in the belief of being a superior being. The ones that are convinced that being on top of a food chain is all there is to it. People who believe that money, an invented trading system by the very same species, is the meaning of nature and exist. In other words, the phenomena of universe, solar systems, galaxies, supernovas, black holes, and nature's own exceptional brilliance is all here so that a species could have the opportunity to invent something they call money. These people are living in convenience that money is the meaning of all this. Then they wonder, how come things are so twisted in the world of today? In order for humanity to shape up and get our ship, our nature, this opportunity of life on the right side, there are many areas that need adjustments. Our financial ecosystem is just one of them. We need to reform our foundational mentalities in both normality norms as well as acceptations of what our reality is like in the most naked form there is. Today's politics and fundamentals were suitable for a planet long time ago. The variables have already changed, and none of today's systems are truly adjusted to that simple fact. The Cold War is also a major important step in order for species to see that mass destruction is not really an option anyone gains something from. An important understanding growing into the species awareness. Many speaks about that we never learn from history, and that it would be repeating itself. It's not entirely true. Or the truth doesn't end there, to put it in my own words. Evolution is not a circle but rather a spiral that continues in whatever direction it's heading for. The spiral may repeat event, but there is never the same foundation, since whenever a seemingly equal event occurs there has always been a change in variables. With new evolutionary steps already taken and new ones are being gained. Evolution is on the move at all time and never stops to rest. It's a part of our natural state of being. Evolution and defining are very similar in that way, cause when you define you take something around the clock so many times that each line eventually forms an orb. And once that's done you are able to see and pinpoint directions to reach new destination with a greater accuracy. When working within this type of awareness, the surrounding norm somehow loses its original intended meaning and can be a tricky part to adjust into. When working with revealing tools you see all directions, both uncomfortable and comfortable, twisting and turning on every piece in order to see all directions of a single event. One great tool for this is atom from Dao Buddhism, the variable of the smallest building brick in exist in nature. A variable with enormous power that can be divided into infinity, still being atom no matter how many times you divide it, and take any directions when utilized. Tools of metaverse are the ones you will need in order to be able to grasp these types of formulas, and cannot really be done with the physical ones we have today. These tools are so far ahead when it comes to evolutionary understanding, and has been utilized in our history in many occasions. When dealing with these kinds of variable formulas, you can't exclude any behavioral pattern or reality. You cannot neglect the truth in any direction. People's fear and denials for death, sexuality, and other obstacles due to their perception of normality and what is, limits their possibilities vastly, and they are also rarely to become familiar with metaversical tools and awareness. What's being described? Here is a base of the calibrational lifestyle and also a start of an explanation of the differences between awareness and intelligence, which also divide the calibrational lifestyle from the calculational lifestyle. Isaac Newton is one of the people declaring the bent room in time. The curve of a bent line very much also explains human awareness. Many science formulas have been stimulated and flavored by earlier calibrators and metaversical explanations. The Maya culture has revealed more than people dare to admit, since the fact itself puts science in a bit less impressive state. However, as any scientist knows, they are always putting the last check bit in place, and are always selfishly taking all the credits for it. Science without faith, imagination, and metaverse wouldn't be much to put in a Christmas tree. That's for sure. Every species on this planet has their own evolutionary timeline, and we are all part of this planet's own natural evolution, just like this planet is part of its own galaxy's evolution, which in turn is part of the evolution of universe. Awareness is partial metaversal and partial universal, where your intelligence serves a purpose to make something out of it. Some culture has higher understanding than others. Hinduism has a relative high understanding of metaverse and calibrational lifestyle. Muslims might not be comparable to them, but is ahead the Christian society. A tool that has been amended and preserved a lot within Hinduism for metaversical exploration as well as elaboration with calibrations is the third eye vision. That is a trainable skill set, and the highest achievement for the tool is to reach status of the all-seeing eye. All the tools from all religions and isms are very useful in metaverse and are actually complementing each other and a necessary mean for advanced calibrational formulas. In history, calibrations has been considered to be predictions of future events, which is a truth in some direction. But it's so much more. When dealing with calibrations, you are providing possibilities beyond what you are able to achieve with today's science alone. Metaphysics and physics are actually complementing each other, and the problem of today are the disrespect for each other's forms of being. The spiral of evolution of our planet has bloomed for billions of years and has grown in all kinds of direction even before the species of the human race set its foot on this planet. We just happen to be this opportunity's caretakers and are merely a disrespectful child in progress of evolution, closing in to wakening up from a long time of learning and understanding the basics of being out of the nature we happen to be. The responsibilities and our possibilities when we have climbed out this cocoon of readiness. The awakening is a metaphor for us achieving the so-called final state of awareness that happens to be exactly what you are experiencing by reading this particular book. Piece by piece, step by step, we have raised from evolution, exploring everything that has come in our path. We have discovered and revealed secrets of nature and exist several times over. Invented anything from hunting tools to spacecrafts. Evolution has brought us through war and hate, love and lust. We have been defining ourselves for thousands and thousands of years, always making progress in one direction or another. We move in a never-ending spiral and not a circle like many often confuses themselves. Expressions such as history repeats, which in some way is a perception of it, but nevertheless a false statement. Even though similar events reoccur over and over, it's never the same, but a natural behavioral pattern of our evolution's own slowly raising spiral. Evolution has slowly brought us further and have grown massively in awareness due to the natural spiral of evolution. Evolution is harsh and cruel in many ways, but the fruit it carries and the rewards that comes with it are magnificent. Many wars have been fought and waged all over the planet in our history, some larger than others, all exploring ways of destruction as well as dealing with human limits. War has been one of the greatest natures among humanity and has been fueled by hate, ignorance, and fear, and the lack of understanding between perceptions of truth. Diversity is one of humans' greatest fear. Maybe not as much in an everyday conversation. The fact that we all are equally equipped with heart and brain, and that all species on this planet truly has their own unique evolutionary timeline, and that we all are equally important for our future beings, is missing out in the fear of diversity. Don't get me wrong here, we are natural predators in our base, even though people today amend the behavior of the parasite more often. All our continents have a rich historical culture, and all suffer from glorifications of war and mass destruction. America is built by a total rape of native Indians and their culture, making Hitler appear as a saint in relation to the mass murder that occurred. Asia has had more large-scale wars than any other continent can compare with, where war has been advanced art, and even though its horrific nature has been more advanced when it comes to reading in natures of a war's total picture in completeness. Different nations have shouldered the role as a superpower during different time periods. Sweden, Romans, Holland, England, Russia, France, Germany, and USA, just to mention a few. During all these wars, technology and civilization has evolved and advanced in many directions. The fact of repeatedly remade mistakes is not equal to evolution wouldn't be progressing, but rather a result of humanity's failure to learn and communicate. Evolutionary progress is always a slow spiral. Even though war is a very repetitive event in our history, and the causes have been similar, we still evolve with it. Evolution is the key here and will always be for any form of existence in universe. The largest adjustment is the understanding of higher awareness, and it is happening. The step we are standing before is probably best described as the awakening. Out of the many attempts that's been made by several different philosophers and prophets to prepare us for this very step in evolution has caused both confusion and fear among humans. This is the one step that has been promoted the most, and the visuals we've been provided might seem hard to translate and relate to. Up till this step, there hasn't really been a good support organism for the human being to have a healthy relation to these types, or steps in evolution. We are usually caught in bed each time a step has been made, whether the nature of it has been scientifically or metaversical. The ones out of metaversical nature have a less frequent occurrence rate than the ones out of technical or scientifically nature. Evolution is everlasting and will outlast any form of being eventually. The amount of coexistence of being is entirely up to each opportunity of life's beings. It either ends prematurely, naturally, or become extended for undefined amount of time depending on the choices been made. However, beings in evolution are also a result of the ending of an earlier species. In other words, what has been still are, but in a new form and shape and updated nature. The missing support organism at the time being for past and future evolutionary steps is a result of what once was advanced and very useful tools in order to structure civilizations in many forms are today outdated. Religions and science have till now been able to create necessary structure for human civilizations and helped out in many ways to handle the progress in many ways. But we are still lacking an important piece. The evolutionary steps taken when it comes to social understanding and structure is also a result of our growing awareness. Being stuck on this planet as a mentality is a major issue for our future, being in the sense of us becoming reckless and ignorant in behavior and in taking appropriate responsibility for our next coming generations. The picture and mentality of us never populating another planet fuels a destructive behavior and understanding to life in many directions. People care less about their own actions and doesn't see reason to why they even should consider making an effort in understanding the importance of factors such as equality and generational thinking. Humans has experienced life here upon Earth for thousands of years now, and because of the nature of evolution's timely events, many people don't even keep it in consideration in their ongoing lives. With all rights in an everyday today point of view, when our planet and our population was safe in relation to our continued existence, that wasn't really anything we needed to concern about, even though the awareness of generational responsibility has grown and faded like a wave pattern throughout our history. Today that has come to a point of very vague pace and has a need to change a bit faster than it doing by own nature. The reason is because today we are so used to evolutionary steps in smaller forms that happens within technology. Today technology's miracles come so often we don't even bother about it. We have been jaded in relation to that. We are actually making faster progress and change than ever before. We are approaching a flow of change that for the moment is out of rhythm. We are approaching the pulse and beat of us, moving in a mutual understanding in directions of synchronization. The step we stand before is not an end. It's the beginning of us working together, achieving goals with a better understanding and mutual benefits. Dao Buddhism consider all religions and earlier isms, as well as today considered mythologies, as different schools of universal understanding. However, they are not kept in same relation. Their own participants used to relate to them. They are all part of the evolution of our opportunity of life, and they all contain usefully tools and understandings for our species. They can all be approached from many angles and purposes, and all of them has had impacts of our evolution in many ways that needs to be considered when calibrating an evolution. I talk more about the Bible for the simple reason that I have been growing up in a country where that has been the major religion and what mostly been shared in schools and media around me. That, however, doesn't mean in any way that the Quran wouldn't be out of equal importance in our evolutionary timeline. Both the religions and other isms are different advanced schools of our life, as well as the universal existence we all are participating in. The breaking of the code of the book of the Bible's total picture in completeness was something I accomplished year 2007. All culture and history contain fragments of clues that are vital information for us and our future. As I stated earlier, the book's head character is you and not the variables of God or Satan or even Jesus. And it's in the sense that the book is only describing your entire picture in completeness, showing results of choices made by yourself no matter what path you chose to walk. The Bible is a very advanced way to describe the yin and yang. Your soul and spirit actually are with each other. God is just a part of the total awareness completed by its opposite Satan, and merely reveals different metaversical variables of what can be accomplished and also the responsibility that comes with it. Every single human being and their entity is composed with same possibilities, and the state of total awareness is a state of being rather than state of mind. Many has been limited to that this is how people should be relating to only other entities, where the understanding of the very same truth resides within every single entity. Many has repeated the mistake, fueling a destructive spiral of mentalities that has had severe impact of humanity in too many directions. Total awareness is about an entity's entire state of being. Achieving it is one of the most advanced schools in existence to practice and should not be taken lightly at any point. At first glance of the book of the Bible, it shows you relations between different entities and their role played a bigger picture. The truth goes much further beyond that. It shows you how great faith is as a tool and the depth of how strong it is. It shows you how advanced yin and yang is to explore and its depth and diversity. Heaven and hell, the two balance factors you need to be able to embrace and explore without losing your balance. You contain both in yourself as a single entity, your soul and spirit. The revealing of divine powers in both yin and yang. The book shows different journeys and what they carry with them. There will be a time when time is our main currency. The way we have it today will change dramatically if you look at it in our own evolutionary timeline. Everything is relative in many ways. Truth is that the reality we live in today is just a version and a relativity that we actively chose, and that we actually can change, and it will change no matter we like it or not. Okay, and how do we have it today? At first, we actually traded with the items and goods we owned only, with no possibility to flexibility or to freely choose in the vast range of living that we are able to do today. We were bound to trade with non-replicable values, and to work with exchange was a hard issue. Today, we have lots of different currencies all over the planet, and money that actually vanishes in other paper forms and exchanges. There in between, we traded with copper, silver, gold, and diamonds, as well as other stones. Metal and stones, we still trade in those, but today it's more electronically with plastic, internet, and mobile phones as well. So, value isn't just about hardware and physics. In the trading timeline branch, the timeline is, or should be, the base of the ecosystem of finance branch. Today we have so many different currencies and values, and it's regulated by areas. In one location is what you earn the same as what 10 times higher than others are earning in a different location doing the same thing as you do. Some currencies that, for this example, has the value of one only needs one of that currency in relation to another location. You might need hundreds of thousands of it in order to have the very same one. We all have the same needs, and we all have the same base to stand on. This planet. We are all equal in the eyes of Mother Nature, and so should we be in the eyes of ourself. The sky is our limit is a truth with modifications. The sky is our limit We need air to exist. Simple as that. But that doesn't exclude the fact that we also can exist in space, even if in a quite shy form of it today, compared to what it will be like in the future. If you look at the evolutionary timeline, we have two choices as it is today. We either choose to continue to exist and accept the fact that we will change in the future, just like we have always done throughout the evolutionary timeline so far we existed at least. Or, we don't give a damn and completely screw up this planet to the point of no return and make sure that the opportunity of life ceases to exist on this planet in our corner of the universe. The universe does for sure not give a damn about if life does or does not exist on our planet. The universe has existed for so long time that we aren't even a fart in space compared to its age. Black holes are part of our circle of life as well. Black holes are the true creators in universe, or to be more correct, their evolution is. They are still a bit of gray area since they are hard to spot and to study up close. There will always exist philosophers and visionaries no matter where in time we are. That's how we create ourselves. That's how we shape and form our very own reality. No matter what you do or who you are, one thing that you have no matter how you have chosen to reflect over it before is faith. Faith is what you believe in, and we all believe in something no matter if it's religious or if it's in yourself or money or your work or your relation or your children or technology or even in science. A scientist's belief is the very foundation of what our reality is like. If a scientist doesn't believe in what she or he is doing, it isn't true, and the person wouldn't probably keep it as a fact. Faith has different natures in that sense. When dealing with metaversical faith, it's out of a nature closely connected to your soul and spirit, whereas when talking about everyday life beliefs, it might not be so deeply connected. Throughout evolution, we have had prophets and philosophers that has had visions about the future. Today we vision often about the future, and today things are going much faster than it did before. Today we live in the information technology age of our evolutionary timeline, and today we deal with things that for even 100 years ago would have been strange and weird. We hadn't even been to the moon for 100 years ago. But what has changed is that today people don't dare to visualize the far-ahead future in the same way as before. And with before, I'm referring a couple of thousands as well as just hundreds of years back in time. As a philosopher and metaphysician, you can with calibrational methodology point out milestones and look into relative realities and compare them to each other. You twist and turn on all kinds of possibilities and run different scenarios in same realities as well as same scenarios in different realities. It takes much time and consumes lots of focus and energy to deal with that kind of puzzles and algorithms. You work with flowcharts and different types of timelines. You use tools such as opposite thinking. Opposite thinking utilizes a three-component methodology commonly described with upside-down trees where the roots are as big as the branches and each root. And branch is an opposite variable containing a scenario with a set of basics and cornerstones, starters and stoppers as well as advancers. You work with them in set of 3 or more, and the first tree is the base, where you are today. The third/last is the goal, and the middle is the way from start to the end. Then you start to utilize loose-end thinking and outcome thinking in order to nest it all together, resulting in a step-by-step guide in how to reach a certain goal, most likely with the start from today with minimal risks and the wisest step to take in order to reach whatever goal you wish to reach for. While defining, I work by simple rules. I can add, move around, adjust, but I can't remove anything, in a sense that what is will always be, but some of it will always become past time or fall into history as you probably come to learn how to relate to it quicker than others that remains now time a little bit further. In that way, I will eventually get a complete circle that will evolve in a perfect sphere. The sphere, or ball if you like, will contain all possible solutions and directions, giving us the opportunity to stake out a path where we only need to take many steps enough in the right direction in order to achieve that very goal. By doing this, you build roads to walk easily without taking necessary risks or dangerous steps. All these tools mentioned in the beginning can be applied to any everyday life situation and used to dissect and understand behaviors of nature, life forms, sports and companies, or you name it. The force has been around us all along and isn't anything new. However, it's the hardest achievement you can achieve, and to continue pathing in it is even harder. Lots of you people have gotten in contact with it different ways. Some has called it mojo or voodoo, other is Wiccan and medicine of light, and so forth. There are more names of the force than you are aware about. The force is as real can be, no matter you like it or not. I have been a Pathair since I was 3 years old, and probably before that as well, But it was at age of 3 where I took my first step as Lord Lady Death to Queen Medusa DB Loveheart that I achieved recently with all that comes with it, and here I will now share some of the calibrations that I have accomplished during this entity's existence. At age of 3 I started pathing in death. It started out with a discussion between me, my brother and my father, and how to be ahead of time, and I came to the conclusion that you must walk it backwards in order to be able to be ahead in physics. The discussion ended without any action taken, but my brother and I didn't stop there. We agreed upon that he should drop me in the floor so that I mentally would have a change that made me go backwards much enough in order to always be ahead of time, and so we did. He dropped me from most likely a meter above a stone floor. And from there I calibrated that it would take me about 4 more years before I could achieve and control my new calibrational lifestyle completely, that time as I should, since awareness was my only tool I would be focusing on, and letting calculational lifestyle come along as in an opposite to what children of today are forced to learn to live. All this was done by the determination only a 3-year-old child can have and use, with the purest mind, and when everything I saw already was alienated for me. I'm a mass, and completeness today and memory for me is just a part of my mass where I have to calibrate my way to remember. Most of the so-called normal events are strictly natively programmed in my bones, so I don't have to reflect upon it when they are needed. Then again, so it is for most people, even though you might not be as aware about it in same depth as I am. Most my knowledge is in compilation form, and my brain as free calibrator as possible. Sounds odd maybe, but isn't really. All our cells are equally important, and that's something science of today forget, or are very bad in letting people understand, since the brain is one of the more awesome tools we do have. So is even the heart. Heart and brain cooperate in calibrational lifestyle, whereas people amending IQ and calculation lifestyle neglects and disturb important and vital information, both evolutionary and scientifically. IQ always use AQ as base, and if you neglect the base, the outcomes rarely becomes that good. Just look at today, look around you, and you'll see how badly treated society is in many ways. I have been active in the force since my childhood, well, especially since the age of 3 years old. All children are pure in senses and mind, and are very honest and direct when they communicate with the few elder ones that still utilizes the force as communication channel. It's all about your AQ, awareness quota. If anyone wonders, how will you participate and utilizes the calibrational lifestyle as well as the force? True faith is the only navigational tool you need to by yourself navigate with force. True faith is the only true tool I have, even though I have tried others as well, and still do, but it's only my true faith that is my true tool of force navigation. Many has been in contact with me with so-called mojo and other helpful tools. I calibrated a big calibration before the age of 15 years old. That was around 1989 I accomplished that. The calibration was a personal test for myself to keep track of my progress. Why did I do that? Well, for you to understand why, you need to understand everything you read in this book is true. I'm exactly who I say I am. At the age of 7 or so, year 1981 or 1982, not quite sure which summer it was, I took my second step as a Grandmaster calibrator. Already then, I came up with the calibrational formula, or revealed it to be more correct, and already then I calibrated future in ways many people even today have a hard time to understand. I did all that before I had tried any drugs, or even tasted sex. I needed to prove to you how badly it is with your calculational lifestyle, but that was not all. I also want you to see that we are already among you, and you are fooling no one else but yourself by denying the force and its existence. That summer I calibrated all the things I needed to accomplish in order to go subactive at age of 15, and from there only explore everything life had to give till the point of 2007 when I moved to Netherlands, Amsterdam, and completed a 30-year path of calibration formula and proved it correct. I had by then proved the power of calibrational lifestyle, as well that the force is as real can be. Before the age of 16, I had planned every single step of a scenario that would later turn out to be exactly as calibrated. It's out of personal matter and not worth mentioning more than this. This is exactly how bad it is to neglect awareness and the power of the force. Then again, if I wasn't right, then why bother about writing this book? And that was what that was about. That's how bad adults understands today's childhood. I had proved the force for myself at age of 7, even before I started talking about it with relatives, where we made an agreement one summer in Lovstad, a place in Skane, Sweden, where an actor who played many old Swedish movies lived. The house in Skane where he lived his old days where the future demon of time has its resident and are an important part of my many demon trees within me already. He holds very important check bit for that demon in the domain of death, and I have pathed it well as others has withheld important demon bits that I have pathed and achieved all of them more than well. The people I mention lives or lived perfectly normal lives going on with their business, but metaverse is more advanced than you can understand at this point. The keepers of check bits are usually unaware of them being that, and needs no physical confrontation, but merely a brick in the whole picture. The agreement made back then is the result of this book in a way. One of the big reason our dear Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft, succeeded to be #1 for decades in the IT world. He was laying out a perfect foundation for him to build an empire that has visions that are still valid today. Is because rather than to chose to walk a thin line trying to balance his way to success, he chose to build a highway and simply walk the whole way, watching every step he's about to take while always being aware about where it started, where he's heading, and where he is. That's not all. He created almost a religion out of it, its own natural yin and yang, both software-wise and as fuels for hardware as well. Freeware operating systems is the engine and fuel for the evolution of the Windows operating system and vice versa, opposite engine thinking. In other words, they are each other plus and minus pools, just like Mac and PC are to each other on the hardware side. Bill also filled his ism up with great content and future visions. Microsoft is the heart component and the very name of his company, just like the human heart is for us. They created DirectX, that is the very small and soft individual that lives inside an operating system, Windows, which is its house. Outside its house, there are lots of destinations, infrastructure, roads, and not to forget the cloud itself. His goal in the matter of end users has always been the people as a whole rather than just a few selected ones. Taking care of basic needs with the composure of the Office package probably caused loads of decisions that has appeared as weird or strange when you see to what choices has been made over the whole time that it has existed. Choices where correctness in technology has been put aside before the possibilities and functionality. Taking the time it takes in order to make sure that you at all times take many steps enough to be #1. Even if that isn't the main goal. That's the result you get when you chose to build a road rather than to balance on a thin line. Then we have Linux among others that has become its yang, and an extremely effective yang as well. By creating several tiers of software, Bill Gates created his own road-letting graphical software in favor for games, videos, pictures, as well as CAD programs / workstation software / server software / communication software, like chat, blog, internet browsers, internet applications, always aiming to make sure he covers all the basic lines within the entire world of IT. And in that way becoming a part of the very foundation of the era we live in now, even if it's not the only part of its fact, as he is the main reason that so many people today have access and a greater understanding of IT, as well as being able to utilize the internet and being owners of a personal computer, PC, that is. The practical thing here is that he has never really needed to be the entirely best in any of the IT areas, since it's not one component alone that has brought him to the place where he is today, but the perfect combination of them, and very well balanced, always remaining close to the reality of his very own visions, always alert on where on the road, he is always scouting the realities with his outlooks all over the world, his employees that is, always making sure that they head in the right direction in relation to the road he staked out with his own visions. From the very start till the point when he chose to retire. His visions has been so great that even the ones that comes after him will be able to maintain the company's position for quite some time. The only two reasons they will lose this position is because either the ones that runs it now fail to understand his visions, or the circle completes and the company evolves into a new shape, the next circle of the eternity sign. When you have laid out many strains enough in your defining pattern, you will soon see where the right direction is and what risks it contains. You will also see where the risks are and be able to make choices so that you will be able to walk around dangerous roads and to choose roads that leads you where you want to go while minimizing the impact of destructive events. You will see that the right direction and the fastest direction most of the time are two separate roads. Directional thinking isn't two-dimensional but four or even more dimensional. Even though it probably been presented very often with two-dimensional pictures. Let's have a look at the yang component then. Linus Torvald is just as much hero as Bill Gates himself are. Microsoft has been beaten so many times on their fingers by their opposite engine for so long that Bill is probably glad it hasn't been done physically on him personally. Linux and company is just as much part of IT evolution as Microsoft is for the rest of this IT world evolution. They exist in each other's yin and yang. They are each other's engines. Just like hackers and security people are walking the same paths in a more peaceful way than killing each other is. They both work with the same matter only on different sides of it, and there is a huge gray zone where right and wrong draws their line. Today I have worked within IT. I used to work as an illusionist till I was 25 years old. I learned a lot of weird methodologies within the world of illusion. I got to understand directional thinking with the introduction of misdirection. I learned about reflective thinking, and I learned my own body's movement and expressions, and how I needed to understand my own relation to my surrounding during every single step of my performances. I learned how to read people from an illusionist perspective, and got great experiences about human psychology by just doing something I truly love to do. The routines I trained for hours and hours. The mirror was my best friend for a long time, helping me understanding my own mechanic of my own body. I got a sort of narcissist complex as a trait of as well. I haven't suffered from it since loving myself for me is the base plate in order to be able to love someone else for real as well. To love yourself isn't ugly. It is ugly, however, to not be able to love or appreciate others just as much. We are all humans, and today there is more than 7 billion of us. To believe that you are more than anyone else is not just foolish but quite sad. We should never be afraid to be proud of ourselves, and also be proud with dignity. If you are too proud to be able to respect your surrounding, you are no longer proud, then you are just being ignorant and craving for attention. A wannabe, a person that wants to be special but isn't. A wannabe is someone who chose to keep the personality the wannabe wants to be as its own reality and are quite disrespectful people. History keeps many schools of philosophical methods and are reprinted and redistributed over time with both new and old reflections over them. One in mind is a Swedish author named Jan Guillou that has written many books containing sensitive topics. However, the reason for me mentioning him is because it was one of his books/texts that in my youth introduced me to an Oriental tool of methods called NO learning. It was how it's been partly translated, where the word NO is still most likely the Oriental sound of its pronouncement, and the second word apparently is the translated Oriental part into English. I don't recall the name of the book, but I do remember that it was a cooperation between a few authors telling shorter stories and creating a completeness together with the book as their table of content. The tool of NO learning is a tool of relativity, reality, revealing. It's a very clever tool that can be applied on any sort of content. And Jan Guillou, if I remember correctly, it was his story that explained it very well, and I have had much use of it ever since I got to achieve its understanding. You use the tool on a content that always is left as it is presented, that isn't altered but always remain the same. You can call it a base plate. You only alter the thoughts, understandings, and the directions of those around that particular content. You can take parts of the content and fuel them with definitions of good, bad, fun, sad, right, wrong, and any mentality or understanding you like. By doing this, you will have several story plates, all from one and the same story containing relative paths of the original one, even ones you don't believe in, and by doing that you give yourself the opportunity to see not just how your very first perception of that content is related to reality, but also see and reach new understandings by allowing yourself to learn from your own preset mentalities and see your own limitations in the way you choose to pass judgment on an action or an event kept alone. You learn to see what values different events has depending in what order/direction the content flow, the importance of content, and the understanding what happens when something is ripped out of it. You get to see the same story from an orbish perspective. In other words, you see it from many different angles. So, what's missing then in this marvelous world? Well, we have everything in place, that's for sure. We have educational systems and communicational systems in place. We have political systems in place and financial system in place as well. What we don't have is a world united with one currency, one timeline, one language, one nation, and one law. We need to be able to see ourselves as one united mass for us to be able to take more steps in our evolutionary timeline. We all live on the same planet, and it's ours to take care of. We already know we are on top of the food chain. It's history by now, and not even that impressive considering we are an average on the DNA chain. The future beholds so many beautiful opportunities with a united world, it's remarkable. This is just the first step of many more to come. Our ages will be mixed more with social ages, as well as technological ages in the future. In order for us to be prepared for what's coming next, this is a must step to take. To be able to realize we are not alone and so forth, we must be able to stand on our own feet. Managing the future in a healthy way, taking care of this opportunity of life rather than just leeching from it. There are several superpower nations in the world of today, all trying to preserve total power in a weird balance of war and peace. Isn't that exactly what we all strive for? The perfect world in harmony with each other. Today's reality, we live in a world where America is the greatest superstate, or at least many people consider it to be, and they seem to want to be this world's police force. Which, to be honest, when we all live as one nation, one language, one currency, one timeline, one law, will be just fine with me. We will need the police as a service, but not as a state, no matter the shape of the future's pattern will look like. We need the service in order to maintain order because that's a part of the price of free will, and it will always be like that, even though what the work will contain will always change, since that's exactly what our reality is like. And if we all are the same nation, speaking the same language, we will still just choose to do that work like we do today. In other words, it doesn't matter where the police have its base. We will probably have large bases in each continent just like we have today. Only then we would all be speaking the same language, we would all be able to understand each other. We would all be equal in our economy. We would never have to change money ever again. We would be able to travel wherever we liked. Politics will be more alive, and probably calibrate the relation between small and big societies, as in the size of the cities and the population number, as well as the shape of regions. Different ecosystems. In my opinion, anyone working as a politician should be forced to educate in professional philosophy, counting, and tools like relative thinking, as well as opposite thinking, where the base of the education always is our opportunity in life. Law and order will probably become more aware about everything, and we will start build pattern mats of DNA strains of structures and rules whose base will always be the opportunity of life itself and its ecosystem. The pattern changes a little depending where on the surface of this planet you will choose to live. Just like today, only this is for the opportunity of life and all the possibilities that exist with it. We still need a trading system, our ecosystem of economy, but we need an updated one. One that shows the value of time rather than the size of a pile of money. Fact is, the most important thing in life isn't to be the first in order to be number one. In fact, you live and exist just as much no matter if you come as number one in a competition or if you end up last. There is always a new beginning where there is an end. After a stopper, there is always a starter. And by building a DNA map of clusters of pictures of definitions, we will be able to read the patterns so that we can always see, or see in all time, is also an correct expression here, in what direction we need to go in our next step, in purpose of making sure that we always take many steps enough in order to reach the ultimate way in every single area, an inch of our very own opportunity of life, and the quality of its content. Most of the time we work with negatives of a picture of a feature in the future. Our imagination, that is. Our very own imagination is the source and engine for our very own evolution. Or to be more precise, our brain is. Our brain is the container and projector of everything you ever see, experience, taste, smell, feel, and sense. The brain is our very own engine of our chemical system, which is responsible for all our feelings and experiences. The fuel to this engine is a weak form of energy and electricity. Electricities and energies exist in all life forms and matter we come across, as well as in between. These energies are actually an outcome from nature itself. These energies are needed for everything to stick together, regardless of what the consistence of the matter is. Its mass, regardless size, produces and consumes life energies. Souls and spirits are just another component in this existence, and just like many other things, like our bodies for example, that has a huge amount of dependencies in order to exist in healthy state, so does our soul and spirit. There are energies everywhere. Those energies all exist in both nature and animal life, twirling and twisting in planes the animal human isn't yet so aware of. We know a lot for sure, but far away from everything. Our brain system is like a jellyfish, where the body of the jellyfish is the brain, and our nerve system are the tentacles. That's just one of our body's life important ecosystem. You can't win a lifetime full of perfect life or happiness with having most money, nor most items. Life is already perfect as it is in its own creation. We are just one of life's own outcomes. We come from the nature, and the nature is always our mother and father. We wouldn't exist without it, and we still can't exist without it. We must learn to accept that we are all addicted and dependable of life, and not the other way around. Life is just fine no matter if we are in it or not, and the way it is today, life is way better off without us in it. Sadly, enough we happen to be life's last opportunity to bring it further. That is something we tend to forget in the world of today's mentalities. Truth isn't always beautiful in that matter. We would have a healthier planet without us on this planet. A sad but true truth. We can't close our eyes for that fact, and we need to wake up and take responsibility. Happiness is a feeling, not a physical shape or form, but natural chemical with a life energy as outcome. Laughter is a behavior and a reaction to words of perceived truth, just like we speak the language of funny humor. We laugh at the recognition of reality. Tears are just the same. They are both a proof of purity within a content as well as the language of being hurt. We have a couple of systems today. We have the chemical, blood, and food system. This is all equal between us humans. We all are exactly the same when it comes to physically functionality, but sure, we are all different in the makeup. 'Cause that's all it is. Makeup, a way of looking, shapes and forms, that's all different. Diversity is important because that's what we need. If we all lose the ability of curiosity, we will all slowly stagnate away. We all live about 90 years today. Not many people reach over 100 years. We are all equally equipped with heart and brain, and we are only sexual. That's all we are, no more, no less. Rest is just different tastes and different directions in the very same space and time we all exist in. And the choice is ours. We can actually choose to make our existence to be with not only a purpose but also higher standards and higher quality and higher equality base for all of us. But we have to be smart, really smart. I compare and drag things into eternity, and yes and no is just another Boolean expression. Boolean is a computer programming term. It's a variable that can be compared to a light switch that can be either on or off / true or false. Only in philosophy it can be yes, yes, no, no, as well as yes, 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 no, 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 or all yes or all no. You use other variables as well, and in philosophy you usually fill them up with different behaviors or scenarios. Philosophy is like programming without borders. And this is my very own little book of coding. We lack in evolutionary timelines visions, and in great futuristic visions. We don't lack in greedy, massive, destructive failures of great futuristic visions, but we do lack in great futuristic visions that's based on ourself, the human species, and its survival and the opportunity of life. The survival of the opportunity of life that exists on this planet, in this universe. The very same universe that we all exist in, on this little planet, planet Earth. There seems to be a problem though. It seems like we rather choose to flush everything down the toilet. It seems like we want it to end rather than to be, the opportunity of life that is, on this planet in this part of universe. We all know that this planet will explode into the sun in 4 billion years or so. The sad truth is that we are so skilled in our own destructiveness, so we will have destroyed the opportunity of life long before that. Our population on this planet is growing bigger than ever, and we are already over 7 billion people altogether. The bad way we chose to treat this planet and its recourses, we will end the opportunity of life, not just on this planet, but in this part of universe as well. Here we are. Thousands of years in evolution. All around us in close space we have been unable to spot life. This planet, a few billion years old. A big bang from a place in universe. If that's how it really started. This galaxy alone has not been explored by our kind at all. Only some pathetic attempts to get onto the moon with humans, and some space satellites and stations. Quite many of the last ones, actually. This all has been about one big bang so far in this book. Universe equals eternal. Do you even have a slightest idea of how many big bangs that is? How enormously gigantic universe actually is? And I'm not talking about this around the time of today and our planet's existence. I'm talking about all time. Universe and time and space is beyond our imagination today. So was traveling to the moon a couple of 100 years ago. We will always find new impossible for today. That will be the normality of tomorrow. Do you have any idea of how weird and twisted the reality of today actually is? And when I say weird and twisted, I mean as in deranged, the truth that we choose to exist in, how badly our choices are for our own future. Today we live in the information technology era. We have all the communication we need, all the place and space we need to secure our future well. For some reason, the people that live on this planet today has chosen to deal with its own existence in all its glory of evolution in this opportunity of life in this part of universe. To screw it up. People talked about year 2014 and about the prediction of an Armageddon that were going to take place here. That the Armageddon will lead to our distinction. Well, looking on the evolutionary timeline, our world, this planet, will explode into the sun a couple of billion years from now. So, we will cease to exist eventually. At least this planet will cease to exist. Problem is that since we choose to screw this planet up so badly as we do today, we will probably destroy this planet before we reach the next milestone of our next step, our next era in our very own evolutionary timeline. Let's take a look at where we came from and where we are as well as where we are heading in our very own evolutionary timeline. Space has existed so long time before this opportunity of life even started to exist. We are talking eternity here. And during this eternity, a rock called Earth suddenly came to where life today isn't even an eye blink in the reality that we actually exist in. And this one is for sure, we are just as much part of universe as universe is part of us. Our type of existence is depending on some basic conditions. Until we can prove that we can bring life further and colonize another planet, then we can start talking about advanced civilization. You see, one planet, one nation, one timeline, one language, one currency will eventually happen in our evolutionary timeline, no matter we like it or not. Not today, not tomorrow, and maybe not even in 100 more years. But I'd say we are closer than what people might actually think. The economy will be rebuilt eventually, which isn't strange since the same skills is different worth of many factors still today. We have made up a system that doesn't approve of advancement in our evolution anymore. We have truly needed all this that has happened to us in order to reach this far in our own evolutionary timeline. For thousands of years, we learned to say, I am. Now it's time to learn to say, we are for a change. Here is a little poem for you. Night angels, connect with the dark moons and reveal your soul and senses. The force of our nature, hunger from your inner nature. The taste, so sweet and strong. Paths in all directions, walk with heart and mind. Soul and sense companion, faith will guide. Together we grow strong. Standing for dared truths, some of lust, love, and sin, others. Relative relations, of nothing and everything. Angels of the night, seize the things no one else dare to see. Don't be afraid, my love. Night, day, life and death, circle it is for sure. One and the same. Let's stop and think about this for a moment. Is there any way possible to get things straight with premises we live under today? We live in two different timelines. One Christian and one Muslim. None of those are correct to the true evolutionary timeline. We are racist because we don't understand that we are all equally equipped with a heart and brain, and that we are equally different. That we all are capable of to have and enjoy same-sex erotica. It's all in our anal anatomy. That's just the way we are wired. That we don't understand that love and sex are two separate elements, even though love and sex does exist as well in each other's elements. Why is sex so important then? Today, people have a quite vague understanding of what the term instinct means. Today we believe that if we don't die with the absence of something, it's no longer a primary instinct. Well, most cases that's true, but truth still remains. Sex is, if not primary, but probably a secondary instinct. But it is a natural instinct nevertheless, which means it's always there. Our biology and our anatomy are overloaded with sexual reflections and triggers. All our senses have different sets of triggers for raising the appetite for erotica. It's a natural part of our existence. It's more unnatural to go against it than to coexist with it in harmony. The chemical endorphin, among other effects, is very healthy for us and extremely stimulating for our entire body. Sex is the way for the brain to say I'm hungry. Just like the stomach tells you are hungry with its hunger signals, it tells your brain to activate in order to become stimulated. So does the brain do when it needs to oil the chemical system, the brain, and all your nerves. Since it oils the nerve system, it also oils as many of your senses as possible as well. People are so bad dealing with their sexuality today that sex can lead to murder and devastation. Sex today can destroy or dramatically change large-time bits of people's life, if not the entire life during our entire lifetime. And why is that? Because today we have all the wrong expectations about what love and sex is. Sex is a social skill just as much as being our way to reproduce ourselves. And the reason to that is because that's how our anatomy is. That's how nature itself makes sure that no matter if we have invented technology or languages in order to educate ourselves, it won't be a necessity for the purpose of succeeding in reproduction. Since no matter what, we will always succeed in reproduction many times enough in order for our species to have a fair chance of survival no matter where in time we are. This is just a must-be for a formula of free will, mind, heart, spirit and soul, flesh and bone. Cells and energies combined into a unique life with a unique form that has certain dependencies that needs to be maintained throughout life in order to continue to exist. That's the exact necessity for a formula to be complete when created in two components like we are, male and female. Sex will always be of great interest for us. That's just the way we are created. That's the reason to that we still exist. Unfortunately, with sex comes a great responsibility, and that's not just in reproduction purpose, which we have come quite far with today in order of ways to control this matter with birth control, but also as risks of diseases. And for some reason, we chose to not reflect this in the society of today. Some cities in different countries are better on the civilian education on this matter, but most people chose to let people find these things out by themselves. The odd part is we already know that that's the wrong way to go in order to deal with responsibilities. We don't let people find out that you can burn down a house with a matchbox. We don't let people find out that you die if you put a rope around your neck and tie it well in both ends and hang yourself. We talk about it. We teach ourselves sense, reason, and responsibilities. We teach ourselves that yes, even though it's possible, it's a danger that can affect not just your life, but other people's life. We also understand that the same lesson is supposed to be taught for each generation and each person because it's always the same responsibilities. As if sex is any different. Sex is even more important to learn how to deal with, not just about protection, but also about each other. Today people become amazingly weird and peculiar when those words are even spoken. Words of erotica, that is. And not always in a healthy way, which is what I have in mind here. People gets angry, or upset, or ashamed, or even violent. We chose to deal with the matter of sex in worst possible way. We choose to make it into a taboo. The result of a taboo is that you create an incredible gray zone for the sense of morale, as well as giving worse odds in success. That means that the same engine produces different result with every opportunity that decides to use it. Since it's a taboo, people will never really get the opportunity to understand and handle delicate matters where the line is thin between pleasure and well-being and pain and sickness. We practice fire drills every now and then in all companies, not because we want to learn how to set the building on fire, but in order to make sure that we cooperate with the fire department and together do everything we can in order to save lives. We do our part by trying to remember to remain calm and with as much structure as possible leave the building in the securest way possible. The reason is not because we love big fires, but because fire is just as real no matter where in time you are. Through your entire life. Same goes with sex. Sexuality is always a big part of our lives. Even if the sequence of activity goes up and down in different wavelengths. Sex is something you will be able to enjoy your entire life after you have reached full development of your body anatomy. It takes our body between 14 to 18 years of development pure physically, that is, with an average around 16. The average depends a little. The year we have as kids are our most important years in our life, because that will be the base to whom we are in the future. The kids is always our future and should always be respected as that. Let kids be kids. We are here to guide and aid them, support and provide them, teach and enlighten them. Nature has its own way to show us when we are ready for erotically sexual experiences and should be respected thereafter. It's good to explore and discover yourself to get to know your own body and explore its erotically map of erotically zones and how those nerves trigger your sensual and erotically ecosystem. And sexual curiosity is a most natural, growing interest since we all go through the very same type of change. So being a kid with curiosity about sex is probably the healthiest state of mind to be in. A completely new dimension is about to reveal itself, so no one should ever feel bad, strange, or ashamed over the new discoveries you are about to do during this time. Talking about sex is good at this time, even though it will probably feel odd to talk about it if your parents never had a chance to experience a sanely way to talk about it with their parents. Sex, however, is delicate, sensitive, emotional, exciting, fun, tricky, demanding, joyful, ecstatic, and even bad. You see, not just does the genitals develop into male and female genitals with a new set of functionalities. This set of functionalities also brings its own color to all your already existing senses. Giving each and every sense, you have a new set of functionalities that's just lying there being ready to be explored. This way it really does become a new dimension for every person, and it's just another part of our nature. That's just the way it is. Sex is an adult activity when it comes to practice, but there is nothing wrong with a kid that wants to know more about that topic. However, never ever go against human nature when it comes to human will, nor human sexual development. Kids are kids even in the eye of Mother Nature. You don't mess with the future. We have an entire life to live out our sexual dreams in any direction we like it to without going against someone's will. Without messing up the few years we have to build our foundation. It's difficult enough as it is. Education and practice are two different things. Even though practice makes perfect, sex has its own time just like everything else. We might not be able to have it our first 15 years, or whenever people lose their virginity today is. But we will have an entire lifetime filled with it, with different amount of times depending on where in life you are located.